list of participants that will be joining us during today's call. So today on the line, we have representatives from the following governments, including the states of California, Oregon, Washington, Maine, and New York, the provincial governments of Quebec and British Columbia and Canada, the national governments of the Netherlands, New Zealand, Canada, and United Kingdom, tribal and First Nation governments, including the Sitka Tribe of Alaska, Makah Tribe, Quinault Indian Nation, and the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission, and municipal governments, including the City of Vancouver and the City of Seattle. We also have representatives from the following affiliate members and partners, including Ocean Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, Ocean Conservancy, Monterey Bay Aquarium, Hakai Institute, Ocean Science Trust in California, California Coastkeeper Alliance, Scripps Institution of Oceanography, University of Maine, Oregon State University, University of Washington Ocean Acidification Program, University of Tasmania, University of Otago, Federal University of Bahia in Brazil, NOAA, IOC UNESCO, Pew's Linfist Ocean Program, and Rockefeller Brothers Fund. So please note that we are going to be recording today's webinar for our government and affiliate members that were interested in joining but can't make it due to time zones or other conflicts. So for those new partners, we're just going to begin with a very quick overview of OA Alliance core mission and outcomes. So launched in 2016 by the 4 West Coast jurisdictions of Washington, California, Oregon, and the province of British Columbia in Canada, the OA Alliance now brings together a diversity of governments and non-government actors calling for actions on ocean acidification. Since our launch, we've grown to about over 80 members, and we are still growing. And as you can see, we have a very strong mix of national, state, municipal, and sovereign tribal, indigenous, and First Nation governments, along with many dedicated partners like NGOs, industry leaders, and local academia. The Alliance calls for the creation of OA action plans by member governments and interested affiliate members that will advance scientific understanding, reduce causes of acidification, protect the environment and coastal communities from impacts of a changing ocean, expand public awareness, and sustain international support for addressing this global problem. Action plans, as envisioned by the Alliance, are meant to describe real, tangible actions that governments are taking or will take to respond to this threat. We have an OA action plan toolkit on our website and several other documents that will be provided regarding getting started and other topics, specific guidance. We are keeping in mind that not all OA action plans are going to have the same framework or structure. There is a no one-size-fits-all approach to this work, and I think today's webinar will be a lovely demonstration of that diversity. One other thing to note is that the OA Alliance has made a commitment at the UN Oceans Conference in 2017 to support the development of 15 OA action plans by the end of this year, and we are well on pace to meet that goal. So outcomes of the Alliance include the advancement of action plans, elevating OA within international and domestic climate agreements and other relevant frameworks. For us, that mostly means the UNFCCC and the UN SDG 14. And of course, building a diverse coalition. So as mentioned, today's webinar is really going to explore the different approaches that governments have been taking to develop components of their action plans. We really specifically want to focus on the process for drafting and approving the plans, the different scientific bodies and networks that we're helping or are continuing to help to feed that plan, focus on priority actions, and discussion about implementation and indicators of success over time. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. We've got a great lineup of speakers as always, many of whom have been with the OA Alliance really since the beginning when we launched back in 2016. And it's a delight to have everyone on the line here today. So speakers, please remember to go ahead and unmute yourself. And unfortunately, you'll have to say next slide, and I'll go ahead and control the slides for you. We have 50 minutes or so for about 5 presentations, so hoping we can keep to about 8 minutes per presentation. And I'll let you know if we're running over a little bit. So Christina, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Lovely. So I'll go ahead and get your slides up here and let you take it away. Okay.
Great, thank you, Jessie. My name is Christina McGraw, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the New Zealand Ocean Acidification Community, who worked with New Zealand's Ministry for the Environment to develop New Zealand's OA Action Plan. And Jessie, next slide, we'll just jump right into it.
Okay.
Now, first, before I get into talking about our action plan, I'd like to briefly introduce you to the New Zealand Ocean Acidification Community, or NZOAC, which you'll see will play a very significant role in the development of the action plan. The NZOAC has about 200 members who have been holding annual meetings for 13 years and carrying out collaborative projects for even longer. The group started with university researchers and government scientists, but quite quickly to involve policymakers, iwi or tribal representatives, aquaculture representatives, and more recently, regional councils. Now, the relationships between these groups, which were developed 5, 10, and even 15 years ago, have been key to our progress in developing our plan. Next slide. This talk will focus on the development of that plan, and although only the New Zealand government, the NZOAC, and the Ocean Acidification Research Theme at the University of Otago are the three groups who have officially joined the OA Alliance. Let's see, my slides are gone.
Let's see. Yes.
Okay, but I'm going to just keep talking. I know what it says. So only these three groups have joined the OA Alliance, but actually we have much broader support for developing an action plan. There are a lot of groups who are interested, but just haven't officially joined. And these logos represent some of the organizations that have formally voiced support, but this list is growing and growing. And I'll just point out that initially, the development of the action plan was co-led by the Ministry for the Environment and the NZOAC. That's what the circles represent. But I'm pleased to announce that we've recently entered the very exciting final stages of preparing our plan for submission to the government. And this means the Ministry of the Environment is really leading the effort to get it across the finish line. Next slide. When New Zealand organizations first considered joining the OA Alliance, it was envisioned that we would each develop our own action plan. However, pretty quickly, the Ministry for the Environment suggested that all groups work together to create a single New Zealand-wide action plan. And the reason for this is it would allow us to tackle much bigger actions and also take advantage of everyone's resources and knowledge. And if we look at the timeline here, we can see that it was actually only a year from when the various groups first heard about the OA Alliance to the forming of a working group, which include representatives from industry, government, academia, and the council, and actually the start of all of the meetings to actually get that work done. And right from the very beginning, the OA Alliance resources really came in handy. We started with a stock take based on 5 Alliance goals. Next slide. And I actually just noticed a typo. That blue arrow pointing down should say February to October 2018. And thinking about those dates, we can see that the majority of the work in developing New Zealand's actions actually happened over that 8-month period. And we started with the stock take, and specifically, we went to the Alliance's call to action, and for each of the 5 goals, we considered all of their general actions and all of their example actions. And for each of those, we related the concepts to New Zealand-specific topics and concerns. And then we identified available resources which would help us identify these issues. And this is where having the broad the broad working group, which was based on all of these NZOAC council relationships, really came in handy because these available resources covered efforts in industry, academia, local government, and national government. And so with all of this information, we were able to identify key policy and science gaps, and this has allowed us to develop 104 proposed actions to address these gaps. Now, I think when we started, none of us thought we would actually end up with 104 actions, and so it was pretty clear that we had to streamline these. And we did this by spending an additional 2 months narrowing these actions. And specifically, each working group member ranked the 104 actions according to feasibility, benefits, and risks of not doing the work. And when we did this, 21 actions really stood out as being our priority. Next slide. And again, I just want to take a moment to really highlight the key role that the toolkit played. When we developed a country-wide action plan for all of the groups who were interested in the OA Alliance, we needed to address the concerns and the priorities of both government and affiliate members, which was initially quite a daunting task. However, the toolkit made the stock take very straightforward. And in the end, it was the stock take that helped us identify our gaps, but also our opportunities for moving forward. Next slide. And so by October of last year, we narrowed our 104 proposed actions down to our final 14. And we've spent the last few months deciding what form our written action plan would take. Next slide. And we were very lucky that in October, just when we had identified our own 14 actions, California's OA action plan was released. And since then, Oregon's draft plan was released. And although these two were very different documents, they helped us see how we could best combine our own OA actions into a plan with clear 5-year goals and appropriate sub-actions to help us ensure success. And closer to home, we've also looked at a range of New Zealand action plans. And this has been important for us because we have so many organizations working together. We need to identify ways to ensure that all of the various organizations actually carry out appropriate actions to help make sure that it is truly a New Zealand-wide action plan that everyone contributes to. And next slide. And so for the big reveal, our proposed actions aren't actually public quite yet, but I can share the general topics and ideas. And what you'll notice that we group things slightly different than the OA Alliance toolkit, although we did start with that format of the 5 goals, and in the end, all of our actions do meet the 5 goals, but we've grouped them according to these categories. So first, we need to increase awareness of the impacts of ocean acidification, and this includes engaging affected industries and identifying contributors to localized ocean acidification, and has several more parts to that. In addition, we need to, at the same time, increase our understanding of the current state and risks associated with ocean acidification. And this includes expanding New Zealand's ocean acidification monitoring network, which was established 21 years ago and then greatly expanded about 5 years ago. And using this knowledge for a whole range of projects, including finding ways to identify potential refugia and also areas of increased vulnerability. Finally, we need to use all of this information to respond to our changing oceans. And one of the things we'd like to do is improve ocean acidification forecasting and management. Next slide. Finally, I would like to end by highlighting New Zealand's leadership of the Blue Charter Ocean Acidification Action Group. For those of you not familiar with the Commonwealth Blue Charter Initiative, it is an agreement by all 53 Commonwealth countries to work together to solve ocean-related problems. Now, New Zealand is leading the Ocean Acidification Action Group, whose goal is to improve the capacity of Commonwealth countries to address the impacts of ocean acidification. Part of this is supporting member states as they develop their own national strategies. And this is a photo from February, which was our first meeting, which was held here in New Zealand, and it brought together 39 government officials and international experts from 17 Commonwealth countries. So we hope that soon you'll start to hear more action plans being developed by these Commonwealth countries and being supported by New Zealand. And so with that, I would just like to end by thanking Jessie and the OA Alliance once again for their continued support.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. It's been such an honor to work with you all and our first national member of the OA Alliance to have a national OA action plan. So congratulations and thank you for your leadership. Any questions for Christina while I queue up slides for our next presenter, Tom from the Netherlands? Okay. Great. So, Tom, can you hear us okay? Let's see. I can find you. You might be on mute. Let's see. Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and go to our next presenter. If I'm seeing if we can hear Tom, if you can hear me, Tom, let me know. Okay. So Karin Brady, I think that you're up from the state of Oregon. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Good morning, everyone.
Fantastic. Okay, go ahead and get your slides up here and ready to go. Take it away.
All right. Well, I'm happy to join this conversation today. And we are just on the verge of releasing a final Oregon ocean acidification and hypoxia action plan. So I'm speaking on behalf of a group of folks, but I'm going to start back at the beginning. So next slide. The beginning for Oregon was really recognizing the impacts of ocean acidification on one of our local industries that was first impacted, and that was the oyster aquaculture industry. These pictures are of Whiskey Creek Shellfish Hatchery based in Netarts Bay, the Tillamook region of Oregon. And these tanks are where they raise the baby larval juvenile oysters for shipping to facilities across the West Coast and even broader, where those young oysters are grown up into the size that we enjoy eating in restaurants. On the right-hand side are a series of microscope images of larvae. On the left panel, those are healthy larvae, and on the right panel, larvae that were grown up in acidified conditions. In Whiskey Creek, and the impacts there on their operations from naturally upwelled acidified waters really started this conversation for Oregon, and along with impacts in Washington, really for the globe in terms of how ocean acidification could be manifested and impact economics and communities on a broad scale. So these impacts really are kind of our grounding place. This is thinking the beginning of this conversation really set the tone for planning from here on out. Next, please. So after that initial impact was observed starting in 2006, 2007, there were many years of struggles to figure out what to do about those impacts, and then the unobserved but presumed impacts in the natural ecosystem and beyond the oyster aquaculture industry. And that really prompted Oregon to provide as much leadership as we could, both internally within the state, and then had the opportunity to provide that leadership for the global community in helping found the Ocean Acidification Alliance in 2016. And this is a very outdated slide at this point, one of the earliest compilations of early partners for the OA Alliance. And it's just so incredible to see the expansion of this group and how the issues that we have been talking about really resonate on a very broad scale across the globe. As Christina already mentioned, our work in Oregon has been based on the 5 principal components of the OA Alliance call to action principles, including advancing scientific understanding, reducing causes of ocean acidification, looking at adaptation and mitigation measures, raising public awareness, and then building sustained support for long-term action. Next slide, please. So as a state, we've had governor's commitment to this issue, and that was the principal motivator for joining and helping found the OA Alliance. Our legislature has played a significant role as well, and through a Senate bill, created the Ocean Acidification and Hypoxia Council in 2017. Next slide. And that council convened starting in January of 2018 in accordance with that bill, and created the Ocean Acidification and Hypoxia Council report, which was finished in September of 2018. And this report is mandated on an ongoing basis by the legislative bill. So every 2 years and even years, we will be producing a report, and that created a framework for ongoing periodic assessment by the state and recommendations to the state on how to address this issue. In addition, the council was asked by the governor of the state to play the role of creating Oregon's Ocean Acidification and Hypoxia Action Plan, which is a distinct but very complementary and related document. Next slide. So the action plan here, which is just, as I said, is just being released this month, is being presented to our governor, joins the West Coast, other West Coast states, California and Washington shown here. It comes from the council, which is a broad group of academics, agencies, tribes, conservation, fishing, shellfish industry representation, all putting our best ideas and opportunities for addressing this issue into this action plan for short-term action. Short-term for our action plan is over the next 6 years, and so that will be from 2019 to 2025. The reason for 6 years being that the state of Oregon is on a 2-year budget cycle, and this action plan is very tightly tied to agency budgets and actions and providing leadership for the government of Oregon in addressing implementation of the plan. Next slide. The next 5 slides are going to be fairly quick, but have a lot of words on them, so I'll gloss over a lot of it. Each of the slides fits the 5 principal components of the call to action for the OA Alliance, but within each of these 5, we have nested a number of steps to take within this action plan over the next 6 years. So in the first category, advancing scientific understanding, we have focused on our monitoring network and trying to improve that network to provide us with the most rigorous information possible, particularly understanding that we have major gaps in documenting the biological response to the more physical and chemical conditions that are changing in our ocean. And so really wanting to focus on improving that, as well as improving our understanding of socioeconomic impacts and vulnerabilities that we project seeing over the next several decades. Next. Second is reducing causes, and here we're focused both on carbon dioxide as well as the acidification and hypoxia in the ocean. And as everyone on this call understands, ocean acidification is caused proximally by carbon dioxide. In Oregon, we're separating our campaigns, if you will, to address each of these in 2 separate but complementary and connected groups of agencies and policies. And so it's important in this action plan that we tie those together and acknowledge that there are conversations happening about carbon dioxide, but that those are not the primary purpose of the OA action plan. Next, Jesse. So we've highlighted that within the plan by, go back one. I just was emphasizing the connection between CO2 and other OH stressors here, just with underlining. So in reducing causes, we are helping support the conversation about reducing CO2 emissions by bringing in impacts from the ocean and understanding from the ocean. But we are also focused on the OAH stressors, and those we need additional understanding and awareness to really take meaningful action. Exactly what OAH stressors are most important in Oregon, whether it be nutrient runoff, sewage runoff, point or non-point sources of creating acidified waters from our watersheds, which then exacerbate the oceanic or ocean-based acidification that we experience. Next, number 3, resilience. So this this piece is probably the one of the 5 that is the most challenging for us to address, because it is so broad and difficult to identify very specific measures to address it. And so this is where we really are leaning heavily on our agencies to determine where we can improve and adjust and augment our management in order to build general resilience. So this is where there's probably the greatest challenge, but the greatest opportunity for moving forward in a holistic way on this issue. Next. Raising awareness within Oregon. We have a lot of interest and concern on the coast, but the farther we move from the coastline of Oregon, the less directly ocean change is impacting individuals' lives. And so we will be developing a communications plan specifically to address raising awareness, providing information to local decision makers, to state decision makers, in order to really have effective communication tools and syntheses of issues available for everyone. Next. And then really the meat of our plan, as I've said already, relies on our agencies kind of setting a course, recognizing that there are really important roles for the research community, for the non-governmental community to play a part in Oregon's success. But really at the heart of it is that Oregon needs to define what we are committed to and move forward, and then call everyone to help in their own expertise way and bring those resources to bear. But that the state doesn't have the authority to demand that, but rather the leadership responsibility to build that forward momentum. And so the agencies being a key part of this, really we're focused on the relationship among the agencies, the relationship between the agencies and the governor's office, and really digging deep into our systems and identifying opportunities to improve management. Next. So in closing, I did want to touch on that our action plan includes funding estimates for what it might take to implement each of the discrete actions that's listed in our action plan. But they are estimates, and that is provided in order to suggest the scale of commitment that is needed for each of the actions, but to allow for additional design considerations to go into building a budget for specific implementation. And so that will be a dynamic process as we implement and move to each of those steps within the action plan. Also, I wanted to point to the fact that we have not built in black and white evaluation metrics into the action plan, but rather see the Ocean Acidification and Hypoxia Council as an important player in evaluating the implementation of the plan over time, and will build into these every 2-year reports to the legislature an evaluation of the action plan implementation, recommendations for adjustments to that implementation, and any additional recommendations moving forward. So I'm really pleased to be here and have both the report and the action plan nearly done. And what we now have is essentially a roadmap for Oregon to move forward. And I'm looking forward to that implementation and continuing to be part of this Ocean Acidification Alliance community. So thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Karin. And I'll note that these completed action plans will be available on our website once they are published and public. And so we're hoping to start putting these developed and completed plans on the website probably by the end of September, certainly by the end of the year, but reach out to me directly if you have any questions or would like to see specific plans in draft form, and I can facilitate the sharing. Any quick questions for Karin? And before that, can I just suggest, Tom, I can see you on the line. Can you hear me okay?
I'm here now.
Wonderful.
Can you hear me?
I can. Great.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see real quick. Any questions for Karin before we move to the next presentation? Okay, great. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to me and I can help facilitate discussions amongst members and put you in contact with some of the presenters here or connect with draft plans. So Tom, it's wonderful to have you. We're so delighted that the Netherlands has become a member of the OA Alliance and has been our second national government really moving towards creation and development of a plan. I'll go ahead and pull your slides up, which I'm not sure you'll be able to see, but I'll go ahead and advance them and you can speak to them. Does that sound okay?
Sure, no, I can see them.
Oh, great. Okay.
I had problems with my my work laptop and my work phone, but I'm on my home computer now.
Lovely. All right, all yours. You've got about 6 minutes. Take it away.
All right. So hello, everybody. My name is Tom Kompie. I'm an advisor for ocean policy at the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management in the Netherlands. And we joined last year, September, and I've been working since on the development of an action plan. Can you just go to the next slide, please, Jesse? I used Jesse's questions as prompts for my presentation. I do not have nice photos as the previous speakers, I'm sorry. First, 2 reasons for us to join the OA Alliance. The first, of course, being the international aspect. The ocean acidification has received little attention also in the Netherlands, but of course is a worldwide problem and will influence our ability to tackle the UN 2030 sustainability agenda. And therefore, from a foreign policy perspective, it is important to take this also into account. Then there is a national aspect. The European Union's Marine Strategy Framework Directive obliges member states to work towards good environmental status of our seas. And what happens in the North Sea obviously is being influenced by what happens in the ocean. Having said that, the pH in the North Sea itself is mostly influenced by changes in the water quality of our rivers. So currently what happens in the oceans does not really seem to influence very much what is happening in the North Sea, but what happens in the oceans will influence the ecosystems in the ocean, and that eventually must mean something for the North Sea as well, although we do not know what that will be. And for those of you who do not know, the Netherlands also has several territories. Some are part of the kingdom, some are municipalities under our governance structure in the Caribbean. And of course, the corals there are at risk under acidification. And this is another issue for us that is increasingly important. Next slide, please. So when drafting the plan, Jesse asked several questions on how we did this. To be honest, we did it largely in isolation, so not based on other examples, but we did use the, some of the previous speakers, the goals and the call to action of the OA Alliance. We used it building on the expertise and involvement of various other ministries, foremost the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, then the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Security, and of course Economic Affairs and Climate, who are involved in the, particularly in the emissions discussions. Then we had we called in the help of NGOs like the World Wildlife Fund and our knowledge institutes that are active in ocean science. I think the plan itself is just as much the drafting it for the issues that I mentioned before, the North Sea on the international agenda is important, but it's equally important for us to raise awareness within the government of this particular issue and to develop a shared ambition to develop a coherent ocean policy, of which an approach to ocean acidification is part. Now, currently, the Netherlands is working together pH data from the North Sea. Of course, we need to report on SDG 14, but we do realize that just measuring the pH is insufficient, and we need actually a better grasp of what is the effect of pH change on ecosystems, for instance. And this is one of the reasons why working together with all members of the OA Alliance is particularly attractive. Next slide, please. There was a question about the kind of data we at the moment use for national decision making. Actually, we had a study performed last year as part of a drive to increase awareness. For those interested, that report is available. And since then, we've started measuring the pH, which is a recent development. And we do that in the North Sea, together with other countries also active in the North Sea area. And we hope to start monitoring in the Caribbean as well. Currently, that is not yet the case. Then important for approving of the plan. So the kind of process we went through is that first we looked at the issues and considered the various departments within the ministry, especially those working on water quality are important, and those working on the North Sea area. And afterwards, we raised the topic with previously mentioned additional ministries, so Foreign Affairs, Economic Affairs, and Agriculture. Afterwards, we set up a regular meeting with knowledge institutes and NGOs. And in that meeting, also this plan was discussed. The next step would be interdepartmental directors that specifically look at the North Sea area. As you may be aware, we are at the moment rapidly developing wind energy on the North Sea, so sea-based wind energy, which means that we have quite an intricate marine spatial planning operation going on with 7 different ministries involved. And through that platform, we also raised this particular plan, which helps also within that group to raise awareness of the importance of taking into account what happens in the oceans as in relation to what happens in the North Sea. Our minister has at the moment approved the plan, but we also have a state secretary who has to look at it. She has not returned from her holidays yet, so she hasn't approved it. And otherwise, we could have shared the plan already with you. I hope to be able to, through Jesse's help, do that soon. But I need to wait for final approval, also by the state secretary, and then we'll take it to Parliament. And basically, that's the end of the process for us. I guess that's my last slide, Jesse.
I got one more for you.
I don't know. So I hope I have the time. So there was a question about what the key species or ecosystems are that we are worried about. Within the plan, foremost on our minds are the coral systems in the Caribbean. We do not yet understand sufficiently the effect of acidification within the North Sea area. The changes there, as I said, are mostly driven by changes in water quality from our river systems and not as yet impacted by CO2 emissions. What is the relevance to our other commitments? Well, we're not skeptics, of course, so mitigation is very clear for us on the agenda. That has also been included in the plan. It refers to our mitigation efforts, which are led by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate. And in addition, it's very relevant to help raise awareness about resiliency issues, specifically in relation to coral reefs, meaning that we need to do more on the improvement of water quality around our Caribbean territories to give the corals there a better chance of dealing with both seawater temperature rise and lowering pH. Do we want to elevate the issue was the last question. The answer is very easy. Yes, of course. And we hope to do that with everybody within the Alliance to make sure that acidification plays its proper role in both the Sustainable Development Agenda and in the discussions on CO2 emission reduction. And that's it.
Well, that is just fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining the OA Alliance and for being such a dedicated partner and member. All of this is because of people like you and other presenters on the phone really bringing this work to bear. So we appreciate it so much, and it's great to have you present with us. And thank you for staying.
If I may, Jessie, so within just a few weeks, we will be able to share the content of the plan, so that actually the actions that are being defined in there can be shown as well to everybody.
That sounds great. I'll be sure to alert folks, and maybe our newsletter at the end of this month or beginning of September, we can suggest when those are public. So that sounds wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And I think what we'll do is hold questions till the end. We've got 2 more presentations, and they're going to be great and a little bit of a different approach. We've got the Makah Tribe talking about their OA action plan, and then the City of Vancouver in British Columbia. So as always, I ask people to probably stay like 5 minutes after the top of the hour if you are so able. And with that, Katie, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I certainly can. I'll go ahead and get you all started, and let's aim for 8 minutes, but of course, don't want to rush you and really appreciate your contribution, so go ahead.
Thanks, Jessie. So my name is Katie Rubel. I'm the Natural Resource Policy Analyst for the Makah Tribe. Next slide. And I just want to orient folks to who and where the Makah are. Makah are located at the northwest tip of Washington State. The reservation is approximately 47 square miles. The Makah are party to the 1855 Treaty of Neah Bay with the United States government, where they ceded 300,000 acres of land in exchange for the reserved rights to fish, whale, seal, hunt, and gather within surrounding usual and custom areas. Our marine usual and custom area, or UNA, you can see on that map, is outlined in green and blue. It extends approximately 40 miles offshore and east towards Port Angeles, and is about 1,550 square miles of area that we are able to exercise our fishing rights within. There are 2,900 registered Makah tribal members, and about 1,400 live on reservation. It's a 2-hour drive from the nearest city of Port Angeles, 4.5 hours from Seattle, so pretty remote. And the Makah identity, culture, and economy are dependent on natural resources, especially from the ocean. Fishing comprises anywhere from 50 to 70% of our economy. Subsistence is still very much prevalent. 99% of households utilize subsistence resources today. Ceremonial use is ongoing. And tourism and recreational fisheries are also a big economic driver for our area as well. Next slide. So Makah is a self-governance tribe. We manage our fisheries, forestry, and hunting resources. We have a very diverse fisheries profile that includes species such as halibut, salmon, groundfish, black cod, urchin, and others. We also have, as I mentioned, a lot of species that are important for ceremonial and subsistence use that might not have a commercial value, but are still essential to the tribe, such as chitons, mussels, other clams. And so this dependence on ocean resources for the tribe's culture, subsistence, and economy are why we're really engaged on efforts to address ocean acidification and changing ocean conditions in order to protect the tribe's treaty rights. I'll also note that a lot of our ocean fisheries are have a larger migratory route or a larger range, and so we're focused on our OA action plan both locally and regionally for the species that we care about. Next slide. And this is really driven by our Makah Ocean Policy, which was finalized in 2017 by Tribal Council resolution. This policy emphasizes the importance of the ocean for the tribe and establishes consultation procedures with federal and state agencies to meet their trust responsibility. And it directs our staff to work to protect the tribe's treaty resources, not only from state and federal actions or decisions, but also climate change and changing ocean conditions. We're really directed to manage living resources through ecosystem-based management, utilizing traditional and scientific knowledge, both within the usual and custom area and throughout the range of the living resource. And it's really focused on enhancing the tribe's ability to anticipate, respond to, and adapt to changes in the marine ecosystem. Next slide. And so we do this through an iterative process. We are currently working on completing our traditional local knowledge framework, which is really defining the historical baselines, using observed environmental changes from our community, identifying critical cultural resources and culturally relevant adaptation strategies, and engaging our community throughout our planning process. And so for both our climate adaptation plan and our OA action plan, we're using this iterative process that's really grounded in the tribe's traditional knowledge, Western science, and the community priorities. Next slide. So community engagement has been critical in all of our approaches for climate adaptation and OA action planning. We really want to identify the community's concerns, utilize their local knowledge and observed changes. And a couple of ways that we've done this, we've had 2 community dinners in 2017 and 2018 in which we've had surveys available, one focused on climate impacts, one focused on adaptation strategies. We've also had, or with those surveys, we've had about 240 completed. We've also conducted 13 detailed interviews with community members focused on social vulnerability to ocean acidification and climate change, and what that means in terms of cultural connections and well-being and their views of health. So our early results are showing that 86% of our community is concerned by climate change and 80% supports the tribe undertaking climate adaptation. And we really want to focus on continued engagement and outreach opportunities for our community. There was a strong interest in better understanding ocean acidification. And so we've had a speaker series on OA so far, and we're developing some outreach materials that we can provide to the community. Next slide. And I just want to highlight one of the results from our impact survey. Impacts to fisheries is the top concern for climate change from our community. Freshwater availability and then ocean acidification was the third ranked concern from our community. And although a lot of folks indicated that they felt like they didn't know a lot about ocean acidification, they knew that it would have an effect on the tribe's cultural resources. And so that definitely ranked high. Next slide. So our process for our OA action plan, as I mentioned, will be iterative. It's still being drafted by our climate change work group, led by our fisheries department, our cultural and research center, and our Office of Marine Affairs and other departments. We are working off of a 5-year goal timeline. So we plan to have this be updated every 5 years. And within this year, we're hoping to have another community dinner to go through this OA action plan and get community review on it, and have a final draft presented to the Tribal Council for approval. And our goal, it might be lofty, is to finalize it by the end of this year. Next slide. And so like many others, it's really focused on some of these overarching goals. So preparing for a full range of ocean acidification risks and impacts. Some of those actions we are currently working on. We're partners with NOAA, University of Washington Sea Grant, and other coastal tribes on this regional vulnerability assessment for the Olympic coast, which is focused on the environmental and social vulnerability to ocean acidification. And so we're working on completing that project in the next year or so. We are working to bolster monitoring efforts with the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission to monitor for ocean acidification, hotspots and refugia. And we're coordinating on research to answer key questions. We really want to drive what those research questions are to protect treaty resources. And so there are efforts being led by many federal state agencies and the coastal treaty tribes on creating this ocean acidification sentinel site for the Olympic coast, which is really aimed at coordinating research efforts out here on OA. We're also working, one of our goals is to reduce the drivers of ocean acidification. So locally, we have several projects underway, and we are working to identify more to reduce the tribe's carbon footprint, including exchanging engines from our fishing fleet under the Diesel Emission Reduction Act, conducting an energy audit on our government buildings to implement energy efficiencies. But we're also engaged on state legislation and initiatives to reduce carbon pollution, and want to work regionally and nationally on other emission reduction strategies. Next slide. Other goals include enhancing natural solutions that might prove to slow or mitigate ocean acidification, such as eelgrass beds and kelp forests and estuaries, and really building potentially a blue carbon market to enhance restoration opportunities for these habitats. We also want to build resilience of our tribal community for commercial, ceremonial, and subsistence fisheries and access to resources. So continued access and connection to the ocean is sustained. We want to foster community education and literacy, and then also engage beyond reservation boundaries on enhancing the importance of treaty rights and Indigenous voices in these processes. Next slide. So implementation, as I mentioned, we really want our actions to be culturally relevant for the tribe. And so this is going to be grounded in our traditional knowledge framework. We want to continue to implement emission reduction programs locally and regionally, work statewide, and again, elevate treaty rights and Indigenous voices in these international forums. Next slide, I think it's a little repetitive. We'll be updating this every 5 years. And we really want to identify tangible metrics for monitoring to measure success. Next slide. Would like to just thank our funders and the community for all of their work on this. And then next slide is just questions and my contact information.
Well, Katie, as always, fantastic presentation, and thank you so much for your leadership and the Makah's leadership in the Alliance, and also broadly the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission. You have been fantastic partners, and it's so great to see this presentation. Okay, well, and thank you, I guess, for the speed read, but really well presented. And again, action plans will be posted when they are public, and feel free to reach out to me with contact information. I can put you in touch with other members of the Alliance as desired. So, Angela, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, for sure I can.
Okay, great. So we have good success of people staying on a couple minutes past the hour. I'm really encouraging everyone on the line to stay on about 5 minutes. 6 minutes past for the City of Vancouver's presentation, it will be great. So Angela, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today, and I think what I'm presenting is something a little different. Being from the City of Vancouver, we don't have the authority to actually manage or monitor ocean health, but being a coastal city, ocean health is very important to us, and we have invested heavily in renewable energy and greenhouse gas reduction targets. So this line of work in OA, next slide, please, is really important and relevant. Next slide. So Vancouver joined the OA in 2017. We're a coastal city. We're part of the Pacific Coast Collaborative. And really, a rationale for doing so was to amplify and leverage our energy and carbon pollution work. And so those are some targets that we have committed to, and we've just renewed that commitment and enhanced some of them as part of a climate emergency declaration from this past April. And although there's a very technical and aspect to this work, this carbon pollution work, and mitigating ocean acidification, it's often technical and it doesn't really resonate with people. So I thought that the ocean acidification work, it's an unknown for us. We need to learn more, but it's also a way to connect this issue of climate change to people. As Vancouverites recreate, live, and derive a lot of their economy from the coast. Next slide, please. So again, why does this matter to Vancouver? Ocean acidification. The local waters of the Salish Sea are naturally acidic, and ocean acidification, from what I've read, is not really reversible within the next generation. The folks who rely on ocean health, be it for cultural or recreational purposes, are at risk, and we really wanted to raise global awareness, use our voice, and raise awareness and support to address ocean acidification. Next slide. So my approach to developing an ocean acidification plan is definitely different from the previous presenters, and I think that reflects the City of Vancouver's jurisdiction, our resources, and influence on this topic. And so I've kind of created what I've called a framework based on the 5 goals, and I'm really going to be looking to the other presenters for some advice, so I'm really excited about that. But basically, to advance scientific understanding, Vancouver has been successful in partnering and convening local experts, and so that's what we intend to do in the next 5 years on this topic. We want to take meaningful action to reduce the causes of OA, and that's what we see as our renewable energy targets, our corporate and community greenhouse gas mitigation targets, in our stormwater management targets, which are all set for 2020, 2050, 2080. We see that as a good steps forward. And we are also, as part of the climate emergency work, we are entertaining ideas about investing in natural solutions for carbon sequestration along the nearshore as well as in terrestrial systems. And so integrating OA knowledge in that work, as well as just general adaptation work. In the background on this slide is a park that was totally restored and renovated, if you want to use that technical building term, to become an estuary, a place that could support juvenile salmonids as well as other ocean life. And so as we move forward with these type of projects, we will need to know more about OA and integrate that into our solutions. There's also excellent opportunities at the moment to support regional action on OA, where it's supporting greenhouse gas reduction or investment in protecting and restoring coastal ecosystems. Next slide, please. And again, I think that I'm sure with a lot of us, the technical aspect of this question or this challenge of climate change and ocean acidification is important, but a lot of it comes down to public awareness and engagement. And so we have a number of citywide programs that are going to be undertaken in the next 3 years, and I'm going to look to include ocean acidification information as part of that communications and engagement effort. There's also a lot of internal engagement that we need to do at the City of Vancouver to help staff understand how their works affect nearshore and ocean health. And we're also really, at the City of Vancouver, really supportive of building the international support on this topic. And so that's why we're here, and why I'm so grateful to Jesse and the team for their support and allowing Vancouver to move forward with an OA plan that fits our jurisdiction, our resources, and our capability. Next slide, please. I imagine that, so I'm working on a draft ocean acidification framework, and I imagine it will be, it'll be brief. It'll be probably 5 pages, and it definitely reflects our technical abilities, but it will be outlining actions within the 5 goal areas about how we can partner and network with the groups that are on the screen to better understand the baseline conditions, the future conditions, and how we can support monitoring and then take that information and integrate it into our adaptation solutions, as well as our greenhouse gas programs and our stormwater management programs. Next slide. So the next steps, really, I hope to finish the draft by October and then review it with Jesse and the crew in November, and then get to work. And I think that this plan or this framework will really be an internal effort. I will be working with, I'll have some of my colleagues review it, and then also reach out to some of the other agencies on the West Coast, like the federal government, the province, and some of the university organizations that are experts in this area, just to get their ideas on targets and timelines, and then we will have something for Jesse's deadline. Next slide. And that's me. So really short and sweet. Happy to talk to other cities about this work. I really think it rounds out a city's greenhouse gas and renewable energy work, and that it, especially for the coastal cities, because we're all going to be working on the coast, and we need to understand how OA is going to affect our municipal or city systems, but we also need to connect this information with the public, because this is one of those tangible outcomes. Can you imagine a future where there are no mollusks or less fish or what have you? I think we need to, we can use this, this message to get people's attention and think deeply about next steps and how they can support personal changes, but also public policy. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Angela, for that great presentation. And it's so important to have the City of Vancouver in the mix. As I recall, you were probably one of the first 10 people to respond to our emails when we first launched the Alliance and say that, yes, you would join. We were so grateful for you then and so grateful for you now, and really excited to release City of Vancouver's OA Action Plan by the end of this year, and also noting that we are working to bring in other city members to the OA Alliance. I think we have about 4 or 5 city or municipal partners, and would like to, through examples of Angela or the City of Vancouver's action plan, inspire and bring others into the work. So with that, those are all of our presentations today. Thank you all so much. I think maybe I'll ask if people are sticking around, if there are any questions. Maybe I'll just leave the line open for a minute or two. Any questions for presenters today? Okay. Great. So with that, I think stay tuned for emails from me. We will go ahead and get a newsletter out that reviews the presentations from this webinar. And again, we will be posting completed OA action plans from national, state, tribal, First Nation, and city governments by the end, ideally, of September, and certainly by the end of the year on the website. As always, thank you all so much for your time. It is just completely appreciated, and none of this work would happen without each and every one of you on the line today, so thank you.